Welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Keith Robinson, managing partner here at Focus Consulting Group. In today's episode, the Investment Leader's Guidebook, we're going to talk about culture by design, and we're going to help you understand how do we really define culture in a way that helps drive our organization forward and attracts and brings in and retains the best talent. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode, Culture by Design. So let's start by defining what we mean by culture. And we need to start with an organizational construct. So at Focus, what we think about when we think about organizations is they're very much like organisms. They function for a reason, and that always starts with your purpose and your mission. Why do you exist? Where are you going? What's the point of the organization? Now, imagine this is like a house, and so the roof of your house is your purpose, your mission, your why. Now, what supports that? What supports the roof? Well, the first thing that supports the roof is a well-defined culture. What are the rules of the game? How will we bring people in and how will we retain people? And what does it mean to work and support this mission? The other pillar, which we won't focus on today, is strategy. And where are we going? So certainly you have a mission and a why. You have a culture which supports that, and that helps you navigate inside the organization. But you also have a strategy which helps propel you forward to achieve that which you want to achieve. Now, inside those two pillars, you have all the things that you would expect in every business, right? You have your investment approach, your marketing strategy, how you develop your talent, how you attract your talent, how you reward your talent, and so on. All of the things that move an organization forward are inside the pillars of culture and strategy. So it's critical that you define your strategy in a meaningful way and that you create a culture that will define and support that strategy. Culture is done by design, not by default. So when we talk about culture by design, it really is creating a culture that actually serves what it is you're trying to accomplish, serves your mission. So cultures are in and of themselves not good or bad. They are by design to drive the result that you're looking for. In other words, to propel your strategy forward. So when we think about different cultures, it's very different. The kind of culture that Ned Johnson created for Fidelity is very much a different culture than, for example, other firms, say a Voya Investment Management, or, for example, a small boutique. Hedge fund cultures can be very different from long-only manager cultures. Those can be very different from wealth management cultures. The whole point of this is to not let the culture sort of happen by default, but actually design the culture to what you want. That means you need to define the values and behaviors, the rules of the game for working in your organization. Make no mistake, often firms that don't design their culture wind up with a broken down house that doesn't really support where they want to go. What's the result? A high level of drama and an inability to attract and retain the best talent. And we certainly know that this is a talent industry, so we want to attract and retain the best talent possible. So let's define our terms. What do we mean by culture? So what we mean is that a culture defined is creating an environment that has the same beliefs, values, and behaviors of everyone involved. So make no mistake, we want diversity because cultures that actually embrace diversity make better decisions and can move faster, smarter, better. But we also want to make sure that we share a same set of values, beliefs, and behaviors. So we can have diversity, but different thinking styles, different approaches, different backgrounds. But it's the values and behaviors and how we've defined them that keep an organization strong, especially during tough times. So if you think about it, think of a Venn diagram where you might have four values, say client focus, purpose driven, highly collaborative, and excellent. Well, ideally you want to define what those mean, and you want to make sure that in the center of that you have all of your people practicing those definitions, those behaviors. We call that a highly cohesive culture. And what that allows you to do is it allows you to have disagreement. It allows you to have debate. It allows you to think differently and make better decisions. Because even though we share these core values of client focus, purpose-driven, collaboration, and excellence, we still can see things differently, and that's the beauty of a strong culture. It allows you to see things differently, but pull everyone together to rally around the same set of values. Now imagine you have this Venn diagram, you have all these people in the center, and you have someone who really kind of plays only on one particular value. Maybe it's excellence, but doesn't really subscribe to collaboration or client focus. We call that individual the red X, and if you really want to learn more about the red X, check out our website and you can read a paper called The Red X. Just contact us and we'll send it to you. We've done a lot of research about red X's. So a red X is someone who maybe performs at a high level but doesn't fit within the cultural values. And you might say, well, great, isn't this diversity? And the answer is no, it's not, because this is the individual that no one really wants to work with because they're hard to get along with. They may drive on excellence in how they actually perform, but they're hard to get along with. They don't really focus on the client outcomes. Basically, they're someone who's very ego-led. So red X's are a challenge. Red X's do exist in certain organizations. Be very mindful if you have a red X, because those are the tough decisions leaders have to make. Do I keep the red X because they perform, or are they actually hurting my organization? One of the keys to look at is if the red X is driving out your talent, chances are you need to make a different decision. We really encourage leaders to say, nobody is bigger than the organization. So often red X's can be such a distraction that it's addition by subtraction. So if you have a red X, you want to be thinking about it, because remember, it's these core values, in this example, client focus, purpose, collaboration, and excellence, that really set the tone for your organization and, by the way, can give you a competitive advantage. Well, as we define values, if we haven't defined them clearly, right, culture by default, every once in a while, because we're all human, sludge can creep into your organization. So what do we define sludge as? Sludge are those behaviors that slow down an organization. Just like sludge in an engine, you don't get the kind of performance you want from a high-performing engine. So things like blame and bureaucracy and politics and negative thinking and disrespect, those are all activities, those are all behaviors that unfortunately can slow your organization down. Now here's the key. Most organizations will have some little bit of sludge because you put people together and that happens. But we don't declare war on sludge, because when you focus on the sludge only gets bigger. What we look for when we're trying to eradicate sludge from our culture is the opposite values that actually drive sludge down. They sort of push sludge out of the engine. So for example, take blame, which is an incredibly toxic sludge factor that sometimes we see in organizations. If you want to eradicate blame, the first thing you have to do is have a highly collaborative organization that really values direct feedback. Because blame is something that's toxic, and it's certainly something that can come from one person speaking to another, sort of trying to create the I hate Sally or Sam club, right? And that's not particularly useful. That's the blame. So remember, high collaboration, good accountability, and direct feedback will push blame out of your organization. And those three factors or behaviors actually create value for the organization. They actually create more safety than just having a blame culture. So sludge is important. It's important to understand what sludge is if you have sludge in your organization. So what does a strong culture give us? A strong culture gives us what we call the building blocks of organizational success. So we can measure these, and maybe in one of our future podcasts we'll actually talk about how do you measure culture and organizational effectiveness. But let's just talk about the building blocks for a second, because strong culture provides the output, which are these four factors. And the first is safety. So the first building block we think about is safety. Do people feel safe and secure? In other words, am I worried about losing my job or not? Do I feel safe to be myself? For example, there's been a lot of writing on the term psychological safety. And so good cultures create an environment of psychological safety. So even if you have a feedback-rich environment, it should be such that it's done with respect and collaboration that safety remains. Because people want to feel secure and safe in their environment, and then they can bring their best selves to the culture. The next building block, once we feel safe, is we want to belong to something. We want to connect with something. So certainly we were tested in 2020 with the pandemic. Safety and security got tested by, will I have a job? And the firms that we saw that actually addressed it early on in the pandemic and assured people that we're all going to get through this together, hence the second building block of belonging and connection. Now, culturally, what we found was as you had safety, the belonging and connection started at what we like to call the familial level. In other words, your small team. So there was a stronger affinity for the small team. That's the belonging and connection, because that's where the safety was, more so than the broader organization. And that was a high leverage factor for firms that really recognize that I need to make sure that my line managers are reaching out to their team every single day and that the team is coming together. That was a way to hold the firm together and, by the way, produce more output than simply trying to do it in a broader sense. So once we've got safety and once we've got connection, then we start to think about, well, what else is out there? What more could I have? And that's where we get into mastery and development. So safety and security, belonging and connection. The third building block then is, how do we develop our talent? How do we continue to skill them up? And it's important because this is one of the key intrinsic motivators of knowledge workers, is to feel like we're continuing to develop our skill set. We're a curious bunch in the investment community, and we always want to get better at what we do. As a matter of fact, excellence and continuous improvement is typically in the top 5 values of every organization that we work with. So understand that once you've got belonging and connection, you need to address mastery and development. The unfortunate thing is, this is often a flat spot in many organizations, usually because boutiques don't have a big structure where you can climb the corporate ladder, so to speak. But we can develop our talent in different ways. And we're certainly going to talk about that in another episode in the future. But recognize that the third building block of culture is mastery and development. Well, once you have those 3 building blocks, safety and security, belonging and connection, mastery and development, we then go to purpose and meaning, the why question. It was always amazing to me that firms would exist without a strong why. And the why can be any number of things. For example, sometimes the why is because we love to challenge ourselves in the marketplace. We love to beat the market. That's our why. As a matter of fact, for investment professionals, analysts, and portfolio managers, that often is their own individual why. That's why they do the work, and that's why they love to do the work. But bigger than that is the why we exist as an organization. Most of us don't really want to take a job where we dig a ditch and fill it back in at the end of the day and come back and do it all over again. We want to do something that connects us to a larger purpose, a larger meaning. We sort of like to think of it this way. You know, for human beings to survive, you need good health care and you need good wealth care. And guess what? The why is we're in the wealth care business. We can reduce anxiety and help create opportunity, help people live their dreams by being good purveyors of good wealth care. That's a great why. And that's certainly something that we can each challenge ourselves to do. So the 4 building blocks are safety and security, belonging and connection, mastery and development, and purpose and meaning. If you can have those 4 building blocks in place with a strong culture, nothing will get in your way. So certainly we know that if we have a clear way about how we're going to go, a clear culture, clear set of values and things that help us make decisions, we actually want to balance those things that compete with one another in terms of our business. So for example, are we an asset gatherer? Are we more sales oriented, or are we more investment led, investment oriented? And so often these are questions that leaders need to wrestle with. For example, are we more collaborative or are we more competitive? There isn't a right answer. It's simply culture will help you balance the competing priorities that you invariably will deal with as a leader in the industry. So once you've understood your values and you've defined your values, these competing priorities, which are just a natural state of business, will become clearer and clearer, and the story of your firm can be told. It's important that recognizing these different things that compete in how you do business, the way you treat your clients, the way you treat your team members, your employees, they are going to get in your way at times, and you have to really sift through them, which is why a well-defined and strong culture will help you come down on the side of this is what we are. We are more collaborative than competitive. Certainly internally, we compete outside, but we collaborate inside. Good, so collaboration and teamwork may be one of your core values. We are more of an investment-led organization than a sales-led organization. Great. Then you might be thinking about those values that really drive investment professionals, like excellence and continuous improvement, right? Development, mastery. Those are things that are very important and core to investment professionals. So recognize that all organizations have competing priorities, but strong values, clear values, aligned with your strategy, supporting your mission and supporting your vision will help you work through competing priorities that you will invariably face. So just to recap very quickly, so culture matters. Why does culture matter? Because we want to do a culture by design, not by default. We want to make sure that everything that we do is clear to our key stakeholders, our clients, our employees, and our owners. Right? We call that our CEO model. And we want to make sure that these are very clear to everybody in that particular ecosystem. We also want to make sure that we are true to who we are, our purpose, and our mission. So remember, don't do culture by default, do culture by design. Make sure that that culture can drive your strategy and support your why, your vision, and your mission. If you do those things, you can compete at a high level and, by the way, attract and retain the right talent for your business. Thanks for listening. We appreciate you listening to what we're up to, and we look forward to seeing you, quote unquote, for the next podcast, episode 3.